Hi, everybody. It's Harvard Lawyer Lee. Today, I'm going to be reacting to the second interview of Amber Heard that played on the Today Show this morning. That interview done by Savannah Guthrie is really hard hitting, goes straight to some of the most difficult issues in the case for Amber Heard. Fantastic interview. There's so much to unpack in terms of her body language, in terms of what she's saying, how it reflects on her case, her appeal, the status of what she would do in a retrial, all of those things. So let's get started. It's a great interview.
There's a text message where Johnny promises total global humiliation for you. Do you feel like that came true?
I just want to say first from the beginning, that whole thing where she looks down, kind of gains her emotions that she wants to portray, and then looks back up, seems more like a stage setting, like something an actress would do, not so much a reaction to what's being said.
I know he promised it. I testified to this. I'm not a good victim, I get it. I'm not a likable victim. I'm not a perfect victim. But when I testified, I asked the jury to just see me as human and hear his own words, which is a promise to do this. It feels as though he has.
So the problem is that Amber is seeing herself as a likable or unlikable victim, as if the jury was simply going to like her and that would make the call. That's not the issue. That was never the issue at trial. The issue was that evidence was brought in that suggested that what she was saying was false. That was, in fact, what the jury found. They specifically found on the verdict form that what she had said about Johnny Depp was false. And so that was the issue. It wasn't whether she was likable and whether or not she was just the favorite, the most popular person in the room. But throughout, she's believed that Johnny Depp's fame bought him all of the people who testified and then ultimately this jury verdict.
Are you nervous as we are here today about what you can say now?
Of course. I took for granted what I assumed was my right to speak.
Do you feel like...
So the problem with that statement is she's talking about an issue that she's already lost in a jury, with a jury. She's already lost the case of what she said was defamation. So is she afraid she would do it again? And here, let's go ahead and hear her.
You could be sued again by him for defamation?
I'm scared that no matter what I do, no matter what I say or how I say it, every step that I take will present another opportunity for this sort of silencing, which is what I guess a defamation lawsuit is meant to do. It's meant to take your voice.
So the problem with that is that's not at all what a defamation suit is about. A defamation suit is about preventing people from saying things that are false, not preventing people from saying things that are true. Even if it's negative about someone else, even if it is defamatory in the sense that it's negative and causes them reputational harm, if it's true, that's a defense. And so the issue here is that not that Amber Heard's voice was taken away, but that the jury found that the three statements Depp had sued her over were in fact false. I also want you to notice, do you see that kind of lip movement that she does? The kind of sneer? She does that repeatedly when she has disdain for what is being asked of her, or when she's talking about something that she seems to be uncomfortable with, perhaps getting near an untruth. Let's keep going.
Life had seemingly moved on, and you decide to write an op-ed. Why did you do that?
Because the op-ed wasn't about my relationship with Johnny.
But it alluded to him. It was unmistakable.
You know, what the op-ed was about was me loaning my voice to a bigger cultural conversation that we were having at the time.
Did you worry?
So the question that Savannah Guthrie asked is exactly right on. What was she thinking? Why on earth did she do this op-ed? It was unnecessary. She'd already finished her divorce. It was over. And furthermore, she had an agreement with Johnny Depp that they wouldn't defame one another, that they wouldn't speak ill of one another. And they had successfully done that for several years. And suddenly, on the cusp of her first big movie, she goes out and does this. The testimony from the ACLU suggested that it was very intentionally timed to coincide with Amber Heard's first movie, Aquaman. Not her first movie, but her first Aquaman movie. That was done for publicity purposes. Now, the ACLU was happy for that because it also gave publicity to their article, but it was unmistakable that it was timed that way and that it had an impact on Amber Heard and her success.
Gosh, I'd love to be a person weighing in on these cultural issues, but that's going to stir this all up again.
I obviously knew it was important for me not to make it about him or to do anything like defame him. I had lawyers, teams of lawyers, review all the drafts of this.
When you wrote this op-ed,
So did you see the sneer again? That sneer happened again, and keep watching for that. Again, she's talking about the fact that she had a lawyer review it, but she's not really explaining what on earth she was thinking. Why was there a need to do this? Because it created a tremendous amount of trouble, and she had to have known that.
It was the height of Me Too. Legions of powerful men being canceled, losing their jobs. Did you want that to happen to Johnny Depp?
Of course not. Of course not. It wasn't about him.
Pulls his arm back.
She says it wasn't about him. She denies that the reason she came forward was in any way to harm Johnny Depp. Yet, I want to remind you that what the jury found, and let's go back and look at that verdict form, the actual finding was not only that the statement that she had made was false, and not only did it have a defamatory implication against Depp, but that the defamatory implication was designed and intended by Ms. Heard. That the jury's finding was that she meant for it to defame Johnny Depp. She meant for it to cause the harm that it caused, and that she did so with actual malice. So the jury did not agree with her at all. She's suggesting it was just coincidental. She had no intention of ever suggesting that he had done anything bad or of harming him in any way. That's not what the jury found. Clear contradiction of what they found.
Back with the phone and throws it at my face. Hit me right in what felt like my eye.
This was a hoax, according to his team. Why didn't I cooperate with the police? As I've testified before, and I will stand by until my dying day, I didn't want to cooperate with them. I didn't want this to be out. I didn't want this to be known. I didn't want to cooperate with them because I didn't want to get him in trouble. If it was a hoax, I could have done that.
But 5 days later, you went to court and it came out.
5 days later, I made the decision to stand up for myself and protect myself. You can't get a restraining order in private, which of course I didn't understand the night when the cops were called.
An employee of...
So again, Amber Heard is talking about the fact that she went to obtain the restraining order. And she's talking about, in this one case, the issue with the police. That's actually her strongest ground so far in the interview, because that's the one issue she won on. The issue that the jury went with her on was the issue where Adam Waldman, Johnny Depp's attorney, accused her of having invented, messed up, roughed up the place, he said, right before the police came, called the police again, and pretended that she had had a problem with Johnny Depp. But the body cam didn't really support that, and the Depp team did not submit evidence to contradict that. So that's the one place where she actually has a leg to stand on about the abuse hoax. But now she's taking it further. Let's listen.
TMZ testified at court and said that TMZ was tipped off about when you were going to be going to the courthouse and on what side of your face bruises would be apparent. Did you tip off TMZ?
I was going to say, he certainly didn't get tipped off by me or
Did
anyone in my...
anyone you know tip off TMZ?
Why would they? No.
You ask no one to do that.
As I testified to before, it had nothing to do with me.
They're different.
So this was one of the critical pieces of information in the case because it's one of the places where Amber Heard was least credible. TMZ, an ex-TMZ employee came into the trial and testified that the fact that that TMZ knew beforehand that they should show up at the courthouse where she was obtaining her temporary restraining order and even knew which side to photograph her on in order to get a photograph of the bruise. So TMZ was ready to go when she showed up at the courthouse. That could only have come from Amber's team. Johnny was taken by surprise. Johnny didn't know it was happening. And why would he call TMZ anyway? So that leaves Amber or one of her close confidants. So it's in Amber's camp. Now, you'll notice Amber's careful wording there at the end. She does deny that it came from her or from anyone from her team. But then at the end, she says, as I testified, it didn't come from me. So she may be distancing herself from people who were working for her. For example, the publicist who is pictured next to her on the bench outside the courtroom. And she may be trying to draw a distinction between what she did and what some of the people working with her or for her did. But it's just not credible that it didn't come from Amber or that how else would they have known? There was some tip off to this. And so that was, while she is very animated about this, more so than anywhere else in the interview, it seems much more natural. It also is just very difficult to believe.
Incidents that you testified to, and the Depp legal team would put up pictures of you publicly right after that or in the days following and saying that why are there no bruises?
Again, it's that thing. If you have bruising, if you have injuries, it's fake. If you don't have any, then you weren't injured.
You had promised.
Okay, wrong. That's just wrong because it's not just a catch-22. Like no matter what I do, she's trying to say, if I bring in pictures, you won't believe me. If I don't bring in pictures, you won't believe me. What could I do? This was not about bringing or not bringing evidence. This was about evidence that contradicted what she said. This is about, she would bring it, she would say, I had a bruise. Here's a picture, no bruise. Again, complete contradiction. And it was evidence that was brought in that suggested that this was false. So her answer has nothing to do with what the question was about.
To donate the $7 million of your divorce settlement to charity. It was revealed at trial that you haven't done so yet. However, they played a tape where you stayed on the air that you have donated it. Do you think that raised questions as to your credibility with the jury?
I made a pledge, and that pledge is made over time by its nature. And
when you say I donated, you know that everybody thinks that you've donated it, not that you've pledged it. So for the jurors sitting there, do you think they felt like that was you getting caught in a lie?
I don't know, because so much of I feel like so much.
Okay, I can't even wait for her answer. I'm gonna have to jump in with a couple of things. First of all, this was probably the issue that switched me the most, that brought me to the side of, wait a minute, I'm just not believing her. When that evidence got unpacked at trial, I thought it was pretty powerful. Now, I want you to notice, you've seen her be coherent and have answers that made, logical sentence structure and stuff up until now. When she gets really flustered, and there was another body language I did about her cross-examination that showed the same thing, her thought structure becomes very disorganized. She starts a sentence, starts another, starts here, and she doesn't really finish. So kind of watch for that.
Of the trial was meant to cast aspersions on who I am as a human, my credibility, to call me a liar in every way you can. And
that was the trial. It was a credibility contest. And that was it.
This is another one of the examples where if you pull back and you think about it, I shouldn't have to have donated it in an effort to be believed. I shouldn't have had to earmark the entirety of that in order to have.
You shouldn't have, but once you said you did.
Right, which is where it was intended.
So great questioning here by Savannah Guthrie. Absolutely great questioning, because Amber is trying to say, well, okay, but I didn't really have to give it in the first place. This is not, the question is not really whether she gave the money or didn't give the money. This is not the ACLU suing and saying, you failed to give us the money, breach of contract, hand over your cash. It's not that. Instead, what this is about is Amber Heard being truthful or not truthful. The reason the evidence was admitted is not because the evidence was critical in and of itself to the question of defamation, other than that it was relevant to whether or not she was telling the truth. That's why it was admitted. That's why it matters.
To go.
Heard says she still plans to honor that pledge.
See you future.
I get to be a mom, like, full time, you know, where I'm not having to juggle calls with lawyers.
One day.
So notice how she seems to struggle with what it is that she calls with lawyers. That's it. That's the thing I'm going to get away from. This answer, frankly, surprised me. I thought she would go into, you know, my career has been very much damaged. It's very difficult to, you know, he's harmed me because of my career. He's made aspersions against me, which could make it difficult for me to get work. And she didn't do that. To be honest, I was surprised by this answer.
You may want to tell your daughter about this or have to tell your daughter about everything that you've gone through. What would you want to say?
I think no matter what, it will mean something. I did the right thing.
No smear.
I did everything I could to stand up for myself and the truth.
On the first day of the trial, you...
So here Amber is talking about what she would say to her child. And you can tell from Savannah Guthrie's entire expression that, and she's shaking her head, what would you tell your child? That she's thinking to herself, how would you ever explain this to a child? You may be forced to do that, but how are you going to explain what happened here? And Amber does not rise to that question. Instead, she talks about how she believes in what she did and its ultimate meaning.
Issued a statement, and part of the statement said, I still have love for Johnny.
Yes.
Is that still true?
Yes.
After everything?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love him. I loved him with all my heart. And I tried the best I could to make a deeply broken relationship work. And
A lot of mouth movements here. A lot of.
I couldn't. I have no bad feelings or ill will towards him at all.
I mean, I don't know. How could she not?
I know that might be hard to understand, or it might be really easy to understand. If you've just ever loved anyone, it should be easy.
This interview was a meltdown disaster for Amber Heard. I don't know what the thought process was behind it. Initially, my assumption was that maybe Amber Heard was going to settle the case with Johnny Depp. And this was her last chance to get out there and say something before they signed some kind of agreement that they would not talk about it anymore, some kind of confidentiality agreement. But it went way beyond that. Savannah Guthrie, I don't know if they thought she would be a pushover and this would be an easy layup interview for Amber. It was in no way an easy layup interview for Amber. And in fact, it was just a PR colossal disaster for Amber Heard. So I'll look forward to Friday. I can't imagine what more is in store. I imagine they held some important things back. So I'll look forward to seeing you in the next videos. Oh, be sure to like and subscribe. I always forget. Thanks for coming.